Weakness policy activated. Perfect. Fine walking right. Alright, that's perfect. Thank you. Iron Crown. Iron Crown to get these are going down to Iron Crown. Oh, I'm so happy about that. And Iron Crown even getting 2 KOs. Iron Crown and Samurai being my starting We're gonna break up those steps and make a deal. Again, I can see that. Could be terrified. Might have been 17 seconds up. But it's gonna be the second more fight. Landing our seats to get this goal. What's going on, everyone? My name is Scorpion and welcome to my Battle Hub Draft League Season 3 seasonal recap. That's right, I did promise I was going to do this, but as you saw earlier, unfortunately my life just got very busy after the season ended, and I wanted to make sure I did not break the promise of delivering a nice recap of the very first draft league that I ran myself, as well as the third and most successful one I have participated in. So yeah, I want to quickly talk about all the Pokemon I had on my team this season, how they performed, and we'll also be crowning our seasonal MVP as well. I also want to take a short moment to congratulate the coach who won it all, as well as all the other coaches that made it to the playoffs alongside me, and give some shoutouts and closing thoughts about the season as a whole. Maybe there will even be a sneak peek of Battle Hub Draft League Season 4, we'll see. So stick around till the end of the video for that one, but with that being said, let's jump right into it. Starting off, we have our trusty round 1 pick of Season 3, which is obviously none other than Iron Valiant. Widely considered as one of the best Pokemon you can pick in round 1 of a Scarlet and Violet draft league. Now, Iron Valiant for me was very special, honestly, to pilot. I absolutely love Iron Valiant. It's one of my favorite Pokemon to use, like in Scarlet and Violet overuse in general. And as such, it was a very big honor for me to get to pick up this Pokemon, obviously knowing its potential, and so I was very excited to use it, and obviously it absolutely did not disappoint. I brought Iron Valiant to each and every single one of my games. To anyone who's ever used Iron Valiant, you probably wouldn't be surprised that not bringing Iron Valiant to a game is, you know, arguably throwing because of how good this mon is. But it's safe to say that, like, while I was building with this Pokemon throughout the season, it really just sort of like came to me why I sort of realized, you know, how strong this Pokemon is, or why people hold it in such high regard, because the coverage that this Pokemon has, coupled with its speed, mixed attacking stats and typing, is absolutely insane. Now, the most common item that I ran on Iron Valiant was actually Life Orb, and it's a bit of an interesting one because thanks to Iron Valiant's amazing speed tier and good matchups into people all throughout the season, I really just noticed that like a simple 4 attacking set with Iron Valiant, usually mixed or just focused on one side of the spectrum, really just sort of gets the job done and allows it to be such a powerful wall breaker. When I was building with Iron Valiant in week 1, I actually like immediately noticed, for example, I was calcing that, for example, just life orb close combat and stuff one-shot stuff like Raikou, and I'm like, wow, this Pokemon is crazy good. Now, as for Iron Valiant's best performance, I do want to talk about that for each Pokemon as well. Its best performance was easily in week 4 against the Whimsicots. Again, for those who have not seen all of my battles yet, I'll leave a link to the whole playlist in the description down below. Please feel free and go and binge those if you haven't already. But yeah, in week 4 it did absolutely incredible. Now, we didn't actually run a Life Orb set back then. We actually ran Choice Specs, and Moonblast and Aura Sphere back then really went to town on the following 4 Pokemon you can see on screen right here. But yeah, Iron Valiant, it's just so versatile. It can be a support one even if you wanted to, if it doesn't have the best offensive matchup. It's ridiculously fast, really strong, and definitely, like, honestly, a Pokemon that I would consider drafting again. Like, Iron Valiant has been just so good, and I'm really happy to finally have done it justice as well, because Iron Valiant has typically actually not done that well in the history of our draft league specifically, because in Season 1 it didn't even make the playoffs, and in Season 2 it did make the playoffs. It made it all the way to semi-finals, but the other Pokemon on the team that had it ended up doing better than Iron Valiant did. So I'm obviously very happy that I was able to do Iron Valiant justice. As you can see, it's got 13 KOs, only 4 deaths. The fact that it's only got 4 deaths in 12 games that we brought it to, honestly, I think is very impressive. And yeah, I absolutely loved having Iron Valiant on the team. I think it was pretty much like the best, most optimal round 1 pick I could have gone for, because obviously Dragapult is typically considered a little bit better. But I'd definitely say that when it comes to those Pokemon, Iron Valiant is definitely one that I could have piloted better than Dragapult. So yeah, Iron Valiant, absolutely phenomenal mon. Very glad to have done it justice. Very happy to have had it on the team, and I would 100% consider drafting it again. So, happy with Iron Valiant. Let's move on to our round 2 pick. Another fellow future Paradox Pokemon. No, not Iron Leaf, but its fellow brethren, Iron Crown. Now, like I said before, I am a big fan of the designs of the future Swords of Justices, or just the future Paradoxes in general, and Iron Crown is no exception. Now, Iron Crown was definitely a little bit overpriced on our draft board in retrospect, and I don't know if I'd call this Pokemon like real round 2 pick material, to be honest. But it actually wasn't supposed to be my round 2 pick anyway. You know, like I said, in my draft analysis, I wanted to pick this Pokemon up in round 3 initially. But yeah, as I said, Iron Crown, I did still bring it to at least half my games, so that's still pretty good. And Iron Crown has definitely got some things going for it. The main problem with Iron Crown is its move pool. Like, something that you might have noticed when you look at Iron Crown's move pool, that it's very limited. Its coverage is pretty much just limited to like Focus Blast and Volt Switch. That's pretty much all it gets. It does have amazing stab options. Obviously, Tachyon Cutter is an amazing move, and it's not exactly short on good stab either. But and apart from that, like its stat distribution is great. It's got good special attack, decent speed, great bulk for an offensive Pokemon. Again, it's really just that move pool which made me not bring it as often as I would have liked. And a more versatile steel type, like for example Golden Go, I think could have been even better on my team. Once the person Golden Go was actually dropped in our season while it was ongoing, and I did actually consider picking it up at one point and trading it for Iron Crown. But you know what? I actually love Iron Crown's design too much, and I was going to stick with my guns. Also because it would have required a few other changes on my team, because obviously Golden Go is more expensive than Iron Crown. Now the stats on the left side of the screen do lie a little bit, in the sense that it does have 4 KOs and 5 deaths. However, Iron Crown, for me, absolutely still did what it was supposed to. It was more of an offense, because I like drafting my hyper offense teams, everyone knows that at this point. And Iron Crown, for me, was sort of that offensive Pokemon that can actually take a hit. And as such, as you can see, the most common item on it we actually ran was Assault Vest. Especially in matchups where our dedicated special ball, which we'll get to in a bit, couldn't do its job too well. Now, Iron Crown was still fantastic in pretty much all the games we brought it to. The only game where it really dropped the ball was in week 9 against Brandon, but obviously in that game specifically, I ended up bringing in more of a fun set. I wasn't really focused on winning because I was already locked in the playoffs at that point. But overall, did really well. Its peak performance, in my opinion, was definitely week 7, where it actually got the KO on the Sneasler and the Scizor at the end. which you guys might have seen in the montage. And Specs Iron Crown absolutely went crazy there, especially taking some very solid hits, because we decided to go for a bit more of a bulky variant back then with max HP, as well as a modest nature, so it really hit hard with all of its moves there. I think it did something like over 50% to a max HP scissor with a Volt Switch, you know, like that's a crazy damage output while still getting a nice pivot. So yeah, in a lot of weeks, Iron Crown was basically just the damage dealer for Pokemon like Torterra and Iron Valiant to come through later. So overall, I'm honestly still very happy with Iron Crown. I think it did its job fantastic. The stats again may not reflect it as such, but do keep in mind as well that I used Iron Crown without the ability to terrestrialize. I've seen Iron Crown absolutely do bits when it is able to terrestrialize in battles. In this one I didn't have the option, but I honestly still think Iron Crown is a solid one. So if you're ever like me, you like running your offense teams, Iron Crown is absolutely still a really fun Pokemon to pilot, and I did not regret drafting it one bit. So yeah, Iron Crown, fantastic mon, and you know, despite the fact that it didn't do as well as I would have liked for a round 2 pick, it was honestly still a really good mon. Alright, next on to the duo of starters, my literal 2 favorite starters of all time. Starting off with Samurott Hisui. Now, Hisui and Samurott for me was the definition of a very pleasant surprise. And the first thing you might notice on that part already is I actually did end up bringing Hisui and Samurott to all 12 games during the season. And Hisui and Samurott, my god. Now the thing is, I had never really seen Hisui and Samurott being used properly. In a lot of draft leagues that I watched, or even in past seasons of BHDL, Hisui and Samurott, from what I've seen, has mostly been a spike stacking machine for a lot of people. And my mission this season was kind of to prove, if for nothing else, just to myself, that Hisui and Samurott is capable of doing a lot more than spike stacking, and that it absolutely did. Just its move pool may not be the widest, but the fact that it still has access to like priority and razor shell and aqua cutter, quite good coverage as well. It's honestly a surprisingly solid offensive mon. You know, base 105 attack may not seem as much, or I think it's actually 108. Base 108 attack might not seem like that much, but when, you know, all your moves are amped up by sharpness, it really starts putting the hurt on. Now, an interesting thing about Hisui and Samurott is that we actually ran a lot of versatile Hisui and Samurott sets. Like I noticed a lot of times when people use Hisui and Samurott, it's usually like always Scarf or always Assault Vest or always some other set. But I actually used quite a lot of different items on Samurott. We also ran Mystic Water one week. We ran Black Glasses a couple times. So Hisui and Samurott, honestly, a really fantastic mon. And if nothing else, the thing I always love about Hisui and Samurott is the fact that it can so reliably force progress by just clicking its Dark Stab, you know, Knock Off and Ceaseless Edge, both absolutely fantastic moves. Now, where Hisui and Samurott really came into its home was absolutely the quarterfinals against our buddy Pokemaster 88, the person who actually ended up giving this Pokemon to us, funnily enough. Ended up getting 3 KOs in that match, and really putting the pressure on the team. And the fact that this Pokemon could just set up spikes while attacking just means that it puts on so much pressure. And I think this actually is the reason why a lot of teams kind of crumbled against me during this season, because the fact that I just never had to actually you know, spend a turn clicking a status move to get my hazards up, or at least not with spikes, and just get them up while I'm attacking. And they also have to obviously respect you know, very strong razor shells and stuff. I think made Hisui and Samurott is a fantastic Pokemon. So like, this Pokemon is so good. Again, the fact that I brought it to 12 out of 12 games, honestly, not even that bad of a round 1 pick if you really want to be generous. But for round 2 and onwards, fantastic Pokemon. I would 100% consider drafting it again, if nothing else because Hisui and Samurott is quite literally my second favorite starter of all time. And as you can see, those stats of 13 and 8 is honestly pretty incredible. I mean, 8 deaths is quite a few times, but still, the fact that he got 13 KOs means it definitely did more than just spike stacking. So yeah, very happy with Hisui and Samurott. And again, I would absolutely consider drafting it again. Very happy with how it did this season. Alright, boys, on to my favorite Pokemon of all time, Torterra. How did my buddy Torterra do this season? Again, I did have Torterra on my team in Season 2 as well, which I never did a recap for, mainly because it didn't make playoffs. I didn't feel like it was worth it. But yeah, Torterra was absolutely incredible this season. It had 15 KOs and 4 deaths, the best stats on my team, actually by quite a long shot, even outdoing Hisui and Samurott and Iron Valiant, which is pretty crazy. It showed up to every single game bar 1, which is week 2, I believe. And it's kind of ironic as well, because for a very long time, you know, we ended up losing 3 games this season, being week 2, week 9, and the finals, obviously. And the fact that Torterra for like up until week 9, like, you know, at the moment of time we were in week 8, the fact that Torterra was the only Pokemon that I didn't bring to the one battle I lost was honestly kind of ironic, right? Like, it really just sort of showed how strong this Pokemon is. Now, obviously, Torterra was a Terra captain in this league for me, and it could Terra Slice into any type, you know, it has free Terra. And with that, Torterra is honestly insane. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to be biased and, or, you know, because it's my favorite Pokemon of all time. But no, Torterra with free Terra is insane. Now, one thing that is worth noting, especially if you compare it to my Season 2 run, back in Season 2 I was really sort of still in the middle of this hype of like, you know, trying to get Shell Smash Torterra sweeps and really just over fixating on trying to get Torterra as much kills on the board as possible. But that really wasn't the case anymore this season. As a matter of fact, the most common item, as you can see, we ran on Torterra was actually leftovers. And for the first part of the regular season, most of the times we ran Torterra was it was actually performing defensively. And that, on my team, Torterra was an incredible defensive wall. It made incredibly good use of Terra. It used moves like Leech Seed, Stealth Rock to force progress, Body Press is a bit of an attacking move to use defensively. We even ran Iron Defense Body Press a couple times. Obviously, thanks to that base 109 attack set, it still doesn't exactly, you know, hit like a paper towel. It's still quite strong. And yeah, Torterra ended up doing really, really well defensively, like walling so many physical attackers super, super well, especially with that Terra available to it. And it wasn't actually until week 5 where we finally ran Shell Smash for the first time. Now, what is really cool is that the few times we did run Shell Smash Torterra, it actually did really go in. Because I think the thing that mainly was true about Torterra this season is because we were running it so much defensively, opponents I think started to respect the possibility of Shell Smash less, or at least like because they were preparing for both sets of Torterra. You know, if you're really prepared for Shell Smash, it's actually not that difficult to stop. But if you're like not entirely sure, because like Shell Smash Torterra has like for the most part specific counterplay, right? So you can't really force all of that counterplay to this Pokemon on there at once, and the fact that it can also just become any Pokemon type at will thanks to Terrestrialization honestly made it super, super versatile and scary to face. So yeah, I'm extremely happy with how Torterra did this season. Again, I wasn't even necessarily trying to get it to the top of the board, but it actually did anyway. And yeah, like I said, seeing my favorite Pokemon of all time get up there was nothing but a very, very pleasant surprise. Now, as for its best performance, again, that was undoubtedly in the semi-finals against my buddy Raymond. Very, very happy with how it did there. Obviously, you know, getting that shot, like, you know, sweeping the reigning champion with my favorite Pokemon of all time was a real anime moment right there. Especially because we actually finally, and like after 2 seasons, we finally unleashed the loaded dice set. Like up until this point, I tried a couple different items, mainly White Herb, but it got, you know, 4 very impressive KOs on the Pokemon you see on screen right now. 2 of them being grass types even. So yeah, Torterra, again, the fact that I wasn't even necessarily trying to get this Pokemon to the top of the board, and it still did, extremely happy about that. I love Torterra to death, and I'm super, super happy with how it did this season. Whether or not I would consider picking up Torterra again if it can't Terra, that's still up for debate, but I mean, it's my favorite Pokemon of all time, so honestly, I probably would. But any league that has Torterra available as a Terra captain, guys, please go for it. This Pokemon is insanely versatile. I love it so much. Alright, onto the later half of our team, actually not quite yet, but onto the next member of our team, that is going to be Cyclizar. Now, Cyclizar was obviously mainly on my team for 2, technically 3 reasons. 1, speed control, 2, rapid spin, and 3, to have a dragon type to round off the Fairy Dragon Steel Core. Now, I ended up bringing Cyclizar to about half my games, and it actually kind of came into its own more towards the later end of the season, because I brought Cyclizar in week 2, and then didn't bring it again for a while. And honestly, the main thing about Cyclizar that I kind of never really noticed is that its offensive stats are actually rather underwhelming. It's got like base 95 attack and 85 special attack. So, you know, it does have access to really, really good coverage, and we definitely did make use of that throughout the season. And obviously, you know, great speed coupled with Generator is always nice to have. But I definitely tried to make Cyclizar work offensively a lot, and that definitely came with how my team was sort of structured, you know, like I feel like if you draft a more sort of balanced team, you can run like Assault Vest Cyclizar more often, or like bulky sets, but I really tried to make Cyclizar force progress as much as possible. Now, Like I said, it was mainly drafted for the intent of being a rapid spinner, and that it did well, honestly. We barely ever had any hazard issues this season, and Cyclozar did get off a couple rapid spins this season, which was very, very useful. But the main thing I really actually just ended up using Cyclozar for was just, you know, like be a hazard remover, but also just be an offensive fast threat. And that's why the most common item on it actually was Life Orb, because, you know, those offensive stats might be middling, but with Life Orb you can still sort of make it work. And especially in week 8, like I said, it really came into its own with actually that week we actually didn't run Life Orb. That was Itemless Acrobat. Actually, you might notice that the two Pokemon on screen, as you can see, are both weak to flying, which we ended up taking out with. But Cyclozar did a pretty good job offensively too. Now, as for what I think of this Pokemon overall, again, I still just kind of wish that those offenses were a little bit better, because I was really sort of struggling to see how I could make significant progress with Cyclozar in a lot of these games. And you know, in quite a few of them, I did end up settling for Life Orb, which isn't ideal, obviously, because Cyclozar, I mean, it likes running Life Orb, but at the same time, you also really just, you know, want boots on it and stuff like that. But still, Cyclozar is still quite a solid mon. If nothing else, it can also knock off items. And the fact that it has priority with things like Quick Attack also really came in clutch quite a few times. Obviously, he finished off a Shell Smash Blastoise in the quarterfinals, which is a very big threat. So yeah, did I like having Cyclozar on the team? Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic mon. And I also think it just fits on a lot of teams. But I do think you have to be aware of the fact that Cyclozar is not the best Pokemon offensively. You need to be okay with having a mon that's like a little bit more passive, you know, if you want to use it. Like I said, I do think Cyclozar comes into its own a little bit better even if you draft it on a more balanced team. But on my team, it still absolutely did what it was supposed to. So I was still very happy with Cyclozar nonetheless. Alright, on to the next Pokemon on the list, which is actually Pheasantipity. Now, I have quite a lot of things to say about this Pokemon, because Pheasantipity was incredible this season. Pheasantipity was one of my absolute goats and one of the biggest reasons why I think I got as far as I did this season. Now, the stats may not directly reflect it. Obviously, it only had 3 KOs and 4 deaths, but that's not what it was supposed to do. So Pheasantipity was supposed to be a wall. So honestly, the fact that it got 3 KOs in the first place was very solid. Now, we mostly ran sort of resistance berries and a black sludge on Pheasantipity, just to kind of keep it healthy. But you can run Pheasantipity offensively if you run things like Swords Dance and Calm Mind. It does have a pretty good offensive move pool. But on our team, it was mostly supposed to be a pivot. Now, it was, like I said in my draft analysis, it was quite funny because I did actually get sniped off of my initial pick for this round in the draft, because I wanted Alolan Muck first. But honestly, I think the person who actually sniped Alolan Muck off me ended up doing me a favor, because like I said, Pheasantipity was so strong. The fact that this Pokemon has nearly unmatched special defense on the sort of team that I had with such a good defensive typing just meant that it can take on so many special attackers, eat a hit, and then try to poison something or just pivot out. Its offense stats are just good enough to just typically force progress on something, and the one thing it can't touch, which is steel types, it can either just U-turn on, or you know, to get it in, or if it's a steel type that's really weak to fire, it actually does get Heat Wave, which we made significant use of a few times throughout the season. Now, even though it only got 1 KO this match, Pheasantipity's MVP match, in my opinion, was absolutely weak 5, because the way I built Pheasantipity back then, it was actually like specifically made so it can 1v1 a Skarmory, a Landorus Incarnate, a Ribombee, which ended up Terra Firing in our face, and another Pokemon I can't remember off the top of my head. But Pheasantipity was actually like really, really strong against more than half the team in that week, and because of its presence, I basically just felt safe for the whole match. So again, if anyone is ever looking for a solid special wall that can pivot and, you know, be annoying with Toxic Chain, Pheasantipity is, in my opinion, like, again, one of the biggest reasons why I got as far as I did this season. I absolutely loved Pheasantipity on my team. It was an absolute carry. Again, that U-turn pivoting while also fishing for things with Toxic Chain. This Pokemon was absolutely incredible. In my opinion, easily the best of the Loyal 3 as well, as far as draft is concerned. So yeah, this Pokemon, really, really enjoyed having it on the team. I do think it fit on my team perfectly, thanks to that ability to pivot. And yeah, Pheasantipity, Goldmon. I absolutely will or would consider drafting it again. Next up is another Season 2 favorite, which is going to be Thundurus Therian. Now, let me get to the elephant in the room. I actually was hoping that Thunderous Therian would do a little bit more for me this season. The main thing actually is that in season 2, when I had Thunderous Therian, I was able to run a choice spec set a couple times, and that is easily my favorite Thunderous Therian set. I also ran that with quite some success in Smoke on Mad games before, but I was actually never able to do that, and ironically enough, that was actually because a lot of the teams that I faced ended up having like ground flying types. Like for example, if you look at my roster, for those who remember it, in week 3 we faced a Gliscor, in week 4 we faced a in week 2 we ended up facing a Landorus Therian, in week 3 a Gliscor, and then in week 4 obviously we faced the Sand team altogether, so that just made, you know, Thunderous Therian quite hard to make work of. And then in week 5 we faced a another Landorus, the Landorus Incarnate. So obviously Thunderous Therian has a lot of good traits going for it, but the main thing it does is just being a very strong electric type wall breaker with Grass Knot to break past ground types, and we just happen to face a lot of ground types that, you know, just don't care about Grass Knot. So as a result, I didn't end up bringing Thunderous Therian that much at the start. However, the game's president was still 7 out of 12, and that's because Thunderous Therian really sort of came into its home again in playoffs, and that's, I think, where it actually did really well. It did only end up having 3 deaths, which is pretty incredible for an offensive Pokemon, and still a very solid 6 KOs. However, Thunderous Therian ironically was actually the best in week 1, where it took down a great touch with Grass Knot, very first KO of the season, by the way, an Illumise and an Articuno Galar, which was a very big threat with Calm Mind against the rest of my team. So Thunderous honestly still did quite well. Again, not as well as I would have liked to, especially compared to season 2. I'd like to think performance-wise, Torterra and Thunderous Therian really swapped, in comparison to 2 and 3, because Thunderous Therian was definitely better for me in season 2. But still, absolutely love this mon. I think Thunderous Therian is one of my absolute favorite electric types design-wise, and it was still an absolute pleasure to use. As for the items that I ran on it, I actually did run Assault Vest quite a few times, just because Thunderous can, force progress quite well by Volt Switching, U-turning on the ground ups that can block Volt Switch, and, knock off items, and also just spread paralysis with Discharge. However, we did end up running Heavy Duty Boots, most of the time just to avoid Stealth Rocks. Now, before I move on to the next Pokemon, I have a little fun story that I want to tell you guys about Heavy Duty Boots specifically, because, the thing with Thunderous Therian as a flying type is every single time I ran Heavy Duty Boots, specifically on Thunderous Therian, but also with my other Pokemon, I ended up regretting it. I actually did not have a single moment this entire season where I switched in with Heavy Duty Boots while hazards were up. It did not happen. The only time where I even switched into hazards with a Pokemon weak to it in the first place was in the finals, and in there, Thunderous's boots were actually knocked off before it was able to switch into the rocks. So every single time I ran boots this season, I actually ended up regretting it. Now the reason why I think that is because, again, my team is so fast-paced to play against that it's very difficult to just get those hazards up in the first place. And I actually don't have that many rock Pokemon on my team as well, but I really kind of wish that I ran Thunderous Therian more offensively this season and just ran a couple of extra boosting items, because we really did not end up needing the Heavy Duty Boots, because Thunderous, as strong as it is, if you do prepare for it, it's not the most difficult thing in the world to deny it from breaking open your whole team. So but still, Thunderous Therian, again, one of my absolute favorite electric types. I loved using it. Shame we never got to use the spec set, which is my favorite, but we still ended up getting quite a lot of value out of Thunderous. And that week 1 performance immediately set it off to a good start. Also with quite a nice thumbnail, if I do say so myself. So yeah, absolutely love this mod, although it wasn't unfortunately not able to come out on top in the Thunderous 1v1 that me and Raymond did in the semi-finals. Like, fair enough, you got me, Ray, you can have that one. Alright, on to the next Pokemon on the list, one of those last few here, which is going to be Bronzong. I don't have much to say about Bronzong, because as you can see, we only brought Bronzong to 4 games, and it only ended up having, they literally had no KOs, but also only 1 death. Now that 1 death is actually a very interesting statistic, because that means that basically the few games that Bronzong did come to, it actually did do really well. And the reason why I didn't end up having as many games with Bronzong is because a lot of the times, which I also said initially in my draft analysis, that because Bronzong shares the same typing as Iron Crown, it was going to be less likely that I was going to put it on, especially because, especially compared to the rest of my team, Bronzong is easily the most passive Pokemon that I have on my team. But still, Bronzong did exactly what I was hoping it would do. It's just a good wall on both sides of the spectrum. It can set up screens, it can set up rocks. It still has an usable attack stat, so you can still threaten things with like Gyro Ball and an Ice Spinner. So every single game that I brought Bronzong to, I just felt a lot more safe against my opponent's biggest threats. Obviously, for example, another good example is week 5, where it absolutely stonewalled the opposing Iron Boulder and the Landorus Incarnate. And obviously, its best game, in my opinion, was easily the quarterfinals, where it did super well against a Noivern, a Sylveon, and so on. So yeah, Bronzong still an incredible Pokemon. If you have run a more balanced team than my team was, I do think Bronzong is going to work even better on yours. But even on mine, again, just having that one Pokemon that can just switch into anything and have that incredible defensive profile is incredibly helpful. And you'll really notice that when you put this Pokemon on your team, your defensive profile as a whole just massively improves. We did end up running leftovers on it pretty much every single game, but because Bronzong mainly doesn't really need other items. We did run Colbur Berry a few times as well. Obviously, very useful, absorber of knockoff if that's the case. But yeah, Bronzong still very solid Pokemon. And the thing I like the most about Bronzong is that we never even ended up, using like an offensive weakness policy set, or like, really went to town with Iron Defense Body Press, because that's also a thing that Bronzong can do to become an unexpected threat. So yeah, would I consider drafting Bronzong again, absolutely. Moving on to our second Terra Captain, which was Hisuian Typhlosion, the second of our Hisuian starters. Now, Hisuian Typhlosion is definitely a Pokemon that got overshadowed by Torterra a little bit as far as Terra Captains goes, because, it was mainly down because of opportunity cost. Like, if I Terrastallize Torterra, that means I can't, or sorry, if I Terrastallize Hisuian Typhlosion, that means I can't Terrastallize Torterra. But the few games that we did end up bringing Hisuian Typhlosion to, it was still pretty solid. Obviously, in week 3, when we finally unleashed the Choice Spec set, that was absolutely insane. It just completely one-shotted a defensive Gliscor and a Metagross from full health, and also doing over half to a Blastoise with Terra Fire. And the games also where, we ran things like Expert Belt and stuff. Hisuian Typhlosion as a Terra Captain is still got a very solid offensive profile, especially because Fire Ghost is already a very solid, offensive type combination naturally. What I really like about Hisuian Typhlosion though in this season is, even though we didn't end up running it that many times, as you can see, it only came to 4 out of 12 games. We still ended up getting 5 KOs out of it, so that averages to more than 1 KO per match, which is pretty solid. But we also ended up, as you can see, between the common items, because we never actually ended up bringing any of the same item more than once. Is one time we ran Typhlosion with an air balloon, where it had a very specific role of spin blocking a Great Tusk, while Torterra and Samurott were stacking hazards in week 1, and then Heavy Duty Boots in week 7. That was actually a very sort of specific physical variant, which is supposed to counter the Alola Ninetales that our opponent had, with Break, and then our typing to Wall the Dual Stab, which both of those that actually ended up doing its role very well in. So, a lot of people, when they run Hisuian Typhlosion, like to just run Scarf Eruption. We never actually ended up bringing Scarf, which I think is very cool. So yeah, basically the point I'm trying to make is I really like sort of the way that I made use of Hisuian Typhlosion, and even though I didn't bring it as much as I perhaps would have liked, it is still actually a very solid mon, and anyone looking for a good Fire Ghost type, I do think this Pokemon is very fun to use as well. So again, not as good as Torterra, but definitely a very fun Pokemon to use, and I do think it's did its job beautifully. And last but not least, we have to of course talk about the meme of the team, which is going to be Morgrem. Now, I can't stress enough, I wasn't really planning on using Morgrem throughout the season, and pretty much the only reason why I did bring it in week 8, the only game that we brought it to, was because I wanted to uphold a morale of trying to bring every single Pokemon on my team at least once. But the funny thing is that Morgrem in week 8 actually ended up doing exactly what I drafted it for. It was supposed to be just a budget Grimmsnarl, something that was supposed to just keep up momentum, better than Bronzong could. Because like we talked about, Bronzong can be a bit passive at times, and literally all Morgrem was supposed to do is get up Reflect, get up Light Screen, and then allow Shell Smash Torterra to sweep. And guess what? As you guys saw in the montage, it did exactly that. So, do you know what, Morgrem? You might not be the best Pokemon in the world, you might not even look that good, I don't know about you, but I despise the design of this mon, but it honestly has grown on me just a tiny little bit, just because I drafted it, wasn't really planning on using it, did it anyway, and it ended up doing its job beautifully. And I can sit here and talk crap about Morgrem all I want, but at the end of the day, Morgrem is the reason, or part of the reason anyway, why Torterra has as many kills as it does. So do you know what, Morgrem? I appreciate you. We never ended up using this thing as a Terra Captain, even though it was technically one. But again, it still did what it's supposed to do. So again, Morgan, I appreciate you. As far as do I recommend anyone to draft this Pokemon? No, but you know, it's well, I guess you could. It's a bit of a meme pick. Obviously, I picked it up for only 2 points. Some draft boards might even put it as 1. But I think as long as it doesn't, you know, mess up your defensive core, which, you know, for all of its downsides, Morgrim's typing is actually quite decent. You know, Dark Fairy is not exactly an easy type to exploit. So yeah, you can definitely pick it up if you want to, if that's the case. So yeah, overall, again, I was super happy with my team performance as a whole this season. It was easily the most fun I've had drafting and piloting a team. You know, across all draft leagues I've participated in, this team has easily been my favorite overall. And yeah, I'm definitely looking to redraft some of these Pokemon for future draft leagues, like I said a few times already. Now let's move on to the BHDL Season 3 results. As you can see on the left side of the screen, we have our team logo, the Leaf Agents, with that silver medal. We ended up making it all the way to the finals and only losing to your new Pokemon Scarlet, the BHDL Season 3 champion, Anastasia, the coach of Team Aquamarine. So big congratulations to Anna. Honestly, like I said, the finals match was a very incredible match. I loved every second of that. And yeah, I'm very glad that there was no like big hacks or disconnects or anything like that. So there is also still an interview coming up on the Battle Hub Draft League channel where I'm going to be talking with Anna. We're both going to be talking about how the whole season went and also our finals match. She brought an absolutely incredible team to try and counteract my team. So very hype match that was. I can't wait to do that with her, and yeah, definitely looking forward to that. So again, big congratulations to her for being our new reigning champion. And then we also have the Mammoth Doubters, coached by Raymond, and the Philadelphia Pidgeys, coached by Captain Beanart, sitting at their shared 3rd place, making it all the way to the semifinals. Again, big congratulations also to these coaches for getting as far as they did. Obviously, Raymond being our previous 2-time champion. Honestly, the fact that the worst this guy has done throughout all 3 seasons is making it to semifinals is incredible. You know, like I said, I have a lot of respect for Raymond. He's a good friend of mine as well. And I'm still, so honestly, like, our battle was also a lot of fun, obviously. So big respects to you, and also happy to have another fellow commissioner of mine, Captain Beanart, make it that far. Congratulations to you as well, my friend. You definitely earned your 3rd place. You played incredibly well throughout the season as well. And then obviously, again, big congratulations to all the other coaches for making it to playoffs, and you know, thank you for all of the other coaches that didn't make it to playoffs once again, rather, for participating in this season. I appreciate every single one of you. Now, real quick, what I want to do is obviously, you know, part of these draft recaps is to crown our seasonal MVP. I'm going to crown my own seasonal MVP for the Leaf Agents, and also quickly talk about which 3 Pokemon overall across all teams ended up doing as well as they did. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time. My seasonal MVP on the Leaf Agents for Battle Hub Draft League Season 3 is none other, I guarantee no one saw this coming, Torterra, right? Now, I'm sure everyone saw this coming, but let me explain. Like, listen, I'm trying not to be biased when I say that Torterra was actually my best Pokemon this season. I really do think it. Because when I look at my team, there's mainly one reason why I think Torterra is my seasonal MVP. Or actually 2. 1, Torterra had the best stats of my team, you know, with that 515 KOs being the highest on my team and also having very few deaths. But number 2, Torterra for the most part was actually just the glue that held my team together. You know, together with Pheasantipity, it was one of the few, and Bronzong, it was one of the few Pokemon that could play a defensive role on my team very well. And because of that, and also the fact that it's you know, super scary offensively when it needed to be as well, Torterra just fulfilled every single role that it could do very well. And because of that, it was just an invaluable piece to the success of my team. Again, just such a scary Terra Captain, and the reasoning behind its MVP placement is definitely, you know, justified in my opinion. Also because, like I said, it is my favorite Pokemon of all time, but it definitely, you know, pulled its weight and outdid itself even compared to the previous season where I had it of Season 2. So yeah, I've absolutely loved Torterra, like I said, and you know, I could go on forever about this Pokemon and how it did this season. I just think it did its job, you know, very well and then some. So, yeah. As for the rest of the Pokemon on the season, very quickly, the Pokemon that ended up getting the most amount of kills this season was actually Necrozma, coached by the Piercing Ponyards on the team of The Best Not Really. very, very incredible there. Obviously, we never really got to face Necrozma, or its Wrath rather, but it still did absolutely incredible with like Dragon Dance sets and stuff like that. So the best big congrats to you for at least getting Necrozma to that #1 place. Number 2 was the start of the Philadelphia Pidgeys, the Sneasler, which luckily, again, we had Torterra for with that Terra Poison. But I guess a lot of other teams, Sneasler absolutely went to town, and Beanar definitely showed off why Sneasler is the scariest unburdened sweeper to go against, and definitely not a Pokemon you should sleep on. And then, of course, overall, third on the season when it comes to stats was actually our very own Torterra. So again, the fact that Torterra is up there with these other 2 scary demons, also as the only Terra captain in the top 3, I think is what absolutely deserves, or gives Torterra that 3rd place on my team. And I'm so proud of my boy to have my favorite Pokemon of all time come this far. So yeah, again, congratulations to the other 2 coaches for getting their Pokemon as high statistics as they did. So with that all out of the way, again, I want to thank everyone for their patience, for waiting for this video. And if you made it all the way to the end, know that I really appreciate you. I really wanted to get all of this out of the way because, like I said, I was the owner and organizer of Battle Hub Draft League Season 3. It's been a wild ride. Obviously, it has been multiple months ago since we started organizing it, when the Indigo Disc came out, but the hype was insane, and prepping for me was a lot of fun, mocking was a lot of fun, and playing the battles and making these videos for you guys especially was just an incredible experience, and I can't wait to do it again. I can't wait to do it again. Big shout out to every single coach that participated in BHDL Season 3. Again, I appreciate you as well. Thank you for the amazing season. Thank you for everyone for sticking it through all the way to the end. Again, we had no dropouts this season, which is pretty solid. A few 4-fight wins in the last week, but it's bound to happen eventually. And yeah, the season as a whole, like the drafting process and the organization part of it, everything just went so smooth. A big congratulations to Emerald Miner in particular for getting the pick'ems correct. Obviously, in the BHDL channel, we organize weekly pick'ems, where you can vote on who you think will win, and he was the #1 person who ended up getting the most correct. So congratulations to you as well. Again, and a final big thank you to Captain Beanart, Emerald Miner, and Brandon for being incredible commissions for me this season, as well as Beardo for being the server administrator. I appreciate all of you guys as well. Hoping to see you back in BHDL Season 4 if there ever is one, so we can hopefully make another experience as smooth as this one. And yeah, with all of that out of the way, I want to thank every single person who clicked on even one of these videos, watched them, supported me throughout the season, and as long as you enjoy the content, I'm very glad you do. I do really enjoy making these videos, and as long as real life doesn't keep throwing stuff at me, I will continue to provide content for this game that I love. Final big thank you to everyone for watching. Again, I appreciate you, can't stress that enough. Thank you so much for watching. And know that the content on this channel will keep coming as well. Now that I'm getting like a little bit more free time again, a little bit more free towards it, expect more Smogon battles, expect more maybe ranked content as well, and I've got a few other side projects that I've got planned as well, which I think will be very fun. So make sure you subscribe, turn those notifications on, leave a like if you did enjoy. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one. Peace out.